Amadeus makes the experience of travel better for everyone everywhere by inspiring innovation, partnerships, and responsibility to people, places, and planet. Our technology powers the travel and tourism industry, inspiring more open ways of working, more connected ways of thinking, centered around the traveler. Our open platform connects the global travel and hospitality ecosystem, from startups to big industry players and governments too. Together, redesigning the travel of tomorrow. Amadeus, it's how travel works. Visit us to know more, amadeus.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Skift India podcast. Today again I have my colleague Bulbul Dhawan who will be joining me for the podcast. Today again we will be discussing some of the major headlines that we at Skift have reported on coming from India.
Hi, Peden. How are you?
I'm good.
I think we should. Anyone who's browsing social media, of course, is again caught up with the Anant Ambani wedding bash now. So I think that's a good place to start this week. We already know that Indians are big on weddings. In fact, according to a report by Jefferies, the brokerage firm, weddings are the second largest consumption category in India, coming only after food and groceries. And you have recently done a story that Indians splurge twice as much on weddings as they do on 18 years of education, right from pre-primary to post-graduation levels. So, and that is insane to me. So, can you just share more details about this?
Yeah, I mean, insane, yes, but just look at the way Indians splurge on their weddings, calling it a once in a lifetime event. Although it might not always be so. Of course, even I was quite shocked to read the Jeffries report that said that weddings is the second largest consumption category in India. I mean, it's according to Jeffries, it's about $130 billion, and food and groceries, of course, is about $681 billion. But still, it's the second largest consumption category, and and while putting that into perspective, is that an average, like you mentioned, the average Indian spends twice as much on a marriage ceremony than on education from pre-primary to postgraduate levels. And this trend is also it persists across various economic classes, and it also showcases this cultural inclination to lavishly celebrating weddings, regardless of course, income or wealth. I mean, like you said, an illustration is, I mean, look at Anant Ambani and Radhika Merchant's wedding, right? I mean, it hasn't even happened. The wedding is, I think, happening later this week, I think on Friday.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I
wedding
think
hasn't
so.
happened, and we've had Rihanna come in, we've had Justin Bieber come in, we've had that 4-day Mediterranean cruise that they had with all the Bollywood stars, and
Yeah.
Katy Perry and Backstreet Boys and Andrea Bocelli. Everyone was there. I mean, you can't even imagine. It was I don't think if you want to host a musical event, you could try and get these people together. I mean, and
It was a festival on its own.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was the Indian Oscars, right? And there were reports that suggested that I think Rihanna was paid about $8 to $9 billion for this performance. I mean, yeah, there is
Mm.
seriously. I mean, if grand had, if there is a personification of grand, that would be that. And
Mhm.
now, if you try to break this down, I can't really. I don't think there is any explanation to it, But if you try to break this down, I mean,
Yeah.
Indians who are otherwise considered quite value conscious, right? I mean, they will only spend if
Mhm.
they see value in it. Why is it that they splurge on weddings? I mean, if you see the recent report that you had, the recent headline in one of the India reports,
Hmm.
of course, we've written a lot about India's rising middle class and how they are the ones who are the force behind outbound travel, and how they are set
Yeah.
to keep spending more on travel. But we now hear of something called India's high net worth travelers. A new report
Yeah.
that you had recently covered, talked about it, and they talked about these
Mm.
travelers who care more about culinary experiences. I think for them, more than the hotel's location, the fine dining options are more important. And it's all
Yeah.
about this exclusive experiences. In the Asia Pacific region, this trend of exclusive experiences is being driven by Indians. The reports said, right? And
Yeah.
they said that these are affluent Indians who have deep appreciation for culture, architecture, design, and are willing to pay more for VIP access. I mean, that's the golden word, VIP
Yeah.
access. And nothing screams VIP more than Rihanna, and Justin Bieber coming together. And of course, we
Yeah.
know that Indians are spending a lot on travel as well, right?
Yeah.
And the report threw a lot of things. And if you remember, I think McKinsey had a report recently about how India is this fast growing source of outbound tourism,
Yes.
right? And then the report had said that about in the 2024 fiscal year, Indians had spent about 17 billion on international travel. Of course, 17 billion is a
Mm-hmm.
fraction of the 130 billion that they spend on weddings. And yeah,
Yeah.
weddings is also it's a very multifaceted issue, and it's rooted deeply in cultural traditions and of course societal expectations. We
Mm.
all know that those weddings will always have those always angry relatives who have not liked the food or who have not liked the decor. So how Indian weddings are, right?
Yeah. And I think a base comparison also comes up that if we compare Indian weddings to say Western weddings, of course there is already a base factor that there'll be more functions and there'll be a bigger group of people. So already there is that differential.
Yeah, because your whole family, your whole set comes in, right? I mean, like when
Yes.
a wedding happens, it's not just about one family celebrating the coming together of two people. It's about involving every there's a word for it, kunba, I think, right? It's like
Yes.
it's everybody's involved. And it's they're not just personal milestones, weddings. It's a community event. And that is when
Yeah.
that shows your status and your social standing as well. And it's also, the opulence is often associated
Yeah.
with is seen as a reflection of a family's wealth and prestige. So it's like whatever you have, this is what reflects. And we
True.
know that weddings always have those naraz phupajis and whatnot. I mean, like, we've seen so many memes about them, right? So from a psychological perspective, there's a strong desire to conform to societal norms and try and outdo others. So that leads to the
Yeah.
lavish spending as well.
Of course.
And of course, like I said, it's these once in a lifetime events that they call it. And then so the families go all out to try and make this more memorable. And this also brings us to the government's role. Like Prime Minister Modi recently,
Mm-hmm.
he launched the Wed in India campaign because he wanted to encourage
Yeah.
affluent families to get married within the country, so that
Mm-hmm.
so that we could capture more of the luxury wedding revenue.
Yeah, because it's such a big base to
Yeah,
work
and
with.
then if you look at it, while this is, of course, this looks as a significant boost to the economy, it also, if you look at it, it's also a little bit subtly endorses the trend of extravagant weddings, right? If you have
Hmm.
this ostentatious ceremonies, it kind of no like, it's like saying that, of course, you are going to have a grand wedding, why not have it in India instead of having it anywhere else?
Yes, yes. And let's now talk about Ixigo, because if we start talking about weddings, we can take episodes upon episodes to discuss that.
Yeah, and wedding, Justin Bieber and Rihanna, I think we can go on and on. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about Ixigo. It recently launched its IPO. We've discussed that. And so last week it had its first earnings
Mhm.
call. And as part of its strategy, the company has decided to maintain multiple apps instead of consolidating them into a single
Mhm.
comprehensive app. So what did Ixigo CEO Rajneesh Kumar say about this strategy?
Yeah, Bulbul. I was very keen to hear what Ixigo had to say during the first earnings call. And of course, they said a lot about how they are trying to now they are spending more on brand marketing, how they've got these South Indian stars like Mahesh Babu, Rana Dagubati for to endorse the Abhibas and Confirm Ticket and all these platforms. But what really struck and what really impressed me was the fact that the Ixico's decision to maintain multiple apps rather than consolidate everything
Hmm.
into a single super app, because we've been talking about super app for a really long time. People have been
Mm-hmm.
OTAs that I talk to always talk about super app. Of course, AirAsia is one of the biggest. AirAsia has AirAsia Move. So, and Tony Fernandez has been talking
Hmm.
about super app for a really long time. So I
Hmm.
heard what Rajneesh said, and he shed light on the rationale behind this multi-app approach. He
Hmm.
highlighted how he talked about how successful travel companies have adopted a multi-app, multi-brand strategies, and he cited examples of Make My Trip, like it has Go Ibibo and Redbus. Trip.com, of course, has Skyscanner, C Trip, Kunar, and then Booking.com, of course,
Hmm.
has Agoda and other platforms as well. So,
Hmm.
Rajni said that these companies either develop their apps in house or through some kind of strategic acquisition and investments, and that is what has led to
Hmm.
what he said is the house of brands approach. So why does
Hmm.
Ixigo prefer multiple apps over a super app? According to Rajneesh, this strategy allows the company to cater to the diverse and, of course, the fragmented needs of various demographics in India. By offering focused and customized experiences, Ixigo ensures that users remain loyal to their apps that kind of best
Hmm.
serve their specific travel preferences. For instance, a bus traveler would benefit more from a bus focus app, right? Somebody who takes the bus, if I'm traveling from Delhi to Chandigarh on a weekly basis, and I prefer to take the bus,
Hmm.
I would rather prefer to have a bus focused app, while a train traveler might find a
Right.
dedicated train app more useful. But what's interesting is that despite maintaining separate apps, Ixigo is also ensuring that users can still access all its services across the platforms. So, there is a lot of cross selling
Okay.
that happens within these apps. So, if you're booking a flight on Ixigo,
Hmm.
you can book a flight on the Ixigo train app. You can book a bus on the train on the flight app, and so
Hmm.
this they allow to seamlessly they allow users to seamlessly access every other vertical of theirs, even if it might be a bus specific app or a train specific app. So this integration
Right.
integrating these offerings to provide a kind of a comprehensive travel solution without making the
Hmm.
users want to switch apps. So that
Right.
was most interesting for me.
So they're trying to not confuse their users, but while also offering them products across the spectrum on the same app, but without confusing them.
Yeah, in a way, it's like every app of theirs is trying to become like a small super app.
Got it. Got it. And so now I would also like to discuss the fact that Indigo Airlines parent company, Interglobe Enterprises, has entered the European hotel space. Um, uh, Miro Hotels, the brand under which it's expanding to Europe, the first property of Miro Hotels is launching in Paris next month, followed by one in Barcelona. And it has a total of 5 properties in its pipeline over the next 18 months, if I'm not wrong. And you recently spoke to Miro CEO Nina Gupta. Can you tell me what you talked about and what she told you?
Amadeus makes the experience of travel better for everyone everywhere by inspiring innovation, partnerships, and responsibility to people, places, and planet. Our technology powers the travel and tourism industry, inspiring more open ways of working, more connected ways of thinking, centered around the traveler. Our open platform connects the global travel and hospitality ecosystem, from startups to big industry players and governments too. Together, redesigning the travel of tomorrow. Amadeus, it's how travel works. Visit us to know more, amadeus.com.
Yeah, sure. If you remember, Bulbul, I think around May or June, there were reports that talked about
Mm-hmm.
how Rahul Bhatia, who's the managing director of Interglobe Enterprises, the company that
Mm-hmm.
owns Indigo, recently he sold about a 2% stake in Indigo for almost about
Hmm.
$395 million, right? And
Yeah.
the reports also said that this move is set to fund Interglobe's other businesses. So and despite
Hmm.
everything, Bhatia continues to remain, Rahul remains the Indigo's largest shareholder and promoter, right? So yeah, when I heard about Interglobe trying to get into the European hospitality segment, which itself is there is a lot of competition there. So I was keen to speak to Nina and find out, what is it that what is the plan that they have in mind. So yeah, of course, right. Like you said,
Hmm.
the first property is set to open in Paris very soon this month, and then they have, I
Hmm.
think,
Hmm.
Barcelona in August, and then London and Vienna next year. Now, one thing that that was kind of interesting for me is that Nina said that while Miro is a very small part of the broader Interglobe portfolio, it also
Hmm.
represents a strategic diversification effort, right? And it's aimed to tap into this um, lucrative European hospitality market. But she also said that even though this is not a vanity project, this is not a project in which Interglobe feels that they want to get into it. It's not just there for the sake of being there. So even though its
Hmm.
contribution will be small, but it's a project for profit, which she said, quote unquote,
Hmm.
right? So this statement
Hmm.
also shows that Interglobe is very keen on making Miro a profitable and sustainable enterprise. Of course,
Hmm.
Nina told me about the fact that they're planning to kind of solidify their presence in Europe, and that when I asked her about dream destinations where she would want to take the Miro
Hmm.
brand, she said, she named destinations like Milan, Madrid, and Rome. And if you see the choice of
Yeah.
destinations, these are all destinations that are popular tourist destinations. So
Oh.
it's about the fact that so they want to cater to the tourists who come into these super popular tourist destinations. And I did
Got it.
ask her about her India plans. So
I was just about to ask you that.
yeah, yeah. So when Europe is the immediate focus, she said, but she did not really tell me.
Hmm.
But of course, they are right now concentrating on Europe. But she said that India also holds potential for growth. Of course, what we spoke about right now. Just before this about
Hmm.
how the high net worth travelers coming in from India. So she feels that India has
Mm-hmm.
a lot of potential for growth, but then they want to first establish the brand very well within Europe and then think about expansion.
And how did Miro come about? If I mean, if you don't mind me asking, just to like briefly.
Yeah, I mean, see, Interglobe has always had, a kind of Accor and Interglobe have an agreement. So in India, you
Hmm.
know, Accor and especially the Ibis properties looked after by Interglobe.
Hmm.
So they already have a very, if you remember when the Accor CEO was in India. Yes, he was when he
Hmm.
was in India. He did speak at length about his when he was speaking about the great Indian potential, he did speak at length about his tie up with Interglobe. So he spoke at length about
Yeah.
they were like, whatever they do, they want to make sure that they their India plans always have Interglobe in mind.
Hmm.
So Interglobe, I think in about 2019, they had acquired this Austrian chain, K and K Elizabeth hotels. I think they acquired it from Goldman Sachs. Yes, I had mentioned it in my story as well. So this had a collection of about 10 four-star hotels in places like Paris, Barcelona, London, Vienna, Prague. They did sell a few of them.
Hmm.
And in
Hmm.
2022 they had also partnered with a European hospitality management company called, yes, I don't remember the name now, but they partnered with a European hospitality management company to manage the European hotels.
Got it.
So these K&K portfolio, they are known for these iconic locations, historic buildings, and I think that
Hmm.
I think now having done a lot in the travel space, they kind of got the confidence to do something, to venture into hospitality as well. Of course, they do a great job in the aviation sector, so they wanted to kind of experience what the hospitality sector is like. And that is when, since they already had these properties, they wanted to do. And Nina told me about how every property has a story to it, how every property has a history to it, how people have come back to them with
Hmm.
stories about what happened there. So these are 100-year-old buildings, so there's a lot of rich history, and they want to bring that history. And right now I think the travelers that we see are all about experiences, so they wanted to bring that
Hmm.
history alive.
Got it. Now let's move on to the next point of discussion, which is so for the past few weeks, we have discussed how India is being looked at as a crucial player in the international landscape when it comes to travel. But when it comes to India itself, international inbound is an issue. And according to a recent report by the World Travel and Tourism Council, while the travel and tourism sector has recovered significantly in India, it is largely due to domestic travelers. International visitor spending in 2023 was more than 14% behind the 2019 levels. And so I wanted to know your opinion on this.
I think the WTTC report was bang on, in the sense that, of course, domestic has been just we've reported about domestic, right? I mean, like, domestic has been over the top. They're doing so
Yeah.
well. Everybody is making money, the hotels are coming in, every hotel, international hotels want to come in, because they're because domestic is doing so well, right? So everything
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
great as far as domestic is concerned. But when we say international
Hmm.
visitor spending, we also mean the inbound traffic, right? So we know that
Yeah.
inbound is not great in India. Of course, there are projections that we
Mm-hmm.
might touch the 2019 figures, uh, perhaps this year or next
Mm-hmm.
year. But in spite of that, if you look at the 2019 figures are also not great. I mean, like, if a small country
Yeah.
like Thailand can attract so many tourists, why can't India, which has so much more, attract more tourists, right? I mean, we've
Yeah.
discussed this at length about what is the India potential and why is it that we are not getting enough tourists. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
sad, but and then we also know that the budget had a huge 97% cut in the budget for global tourism
Yeah.
promotion. So it's also as if the government is saying that, yeah, we want tourists, but we've got enough domestic tourists, so we don't really
Need them.
yeah, we don't really, international tourists to come in. But I think international tourists are important for India. We need to
Yeah.
make more favorable visa policies. Like, we last
Mm-hmm.
last week itself, we discussed about how There are no
Mhm.
direct flights between India and China, and even the visa process is not very simple, because if you are that
Mhm.
if you tell someone that staying in London, that you have to, if you are a Chinese national and you have a Chinese passport, then you have to go to China to get the visa. I mean, that's a little too much. But I think we need to look at making India, and of course, for that we also need infrastructure, and we are getting there as far as infrastructure is concerned. As far as aviation infrastructure, the roads are concerned, we have done a great job of it. But need to get
Hmm.
in those foreign tourists. We need to get those tourism dollars into the country, because while domestic might be
Hmm.
great, I mean, like, look at a country like China.
Yeah.
China has great domestic tourism, but look at the way China is trying to now boost its inbound. It's it's made itself
Yeah.
visa free for so many countries, and it's only increasing the list of visa free nations. So, and India, and
Hmm.
we know that our airports are getting better. We have faster immigration happening. There's a lot of new
Yeah.
things that are happening, but we also need to focus on how to bring those international tourists to the country.
Yeah, and especially since we're a lot of our destination development has been happening while keeping international standards in mind. So, that is something that I think it seems like the government is gearing towards it, but then also not, because then they pull back. I don't understand that, but yes, we do need to look at the international uh, inbound and bring in more international people. But because you also mentioned budget, I would like to briefly touch upon the fact that there is the full budget that is supposed to come out later this month. Now that the new government has been elected, earlier this year, like you said, the global promotion budget was reduced by 97%. But then there was also a boost to the tourism budget for development of destinations. So now that the new budget is coming up, what is the industry expecting from it, according to you?
Bulbul, I think ever since we got into this, I got into travel B2B journalism. I have been, I
Mhm.
was reading the wish list of the travel stakeholders, and believe me, nothing has changed. And it's sad. It's sad, though, that nothing has changed. They want the same things, and it also shows that they want the same things and are still not getting it. Right. I mean,
Hmm.
the industry status, infrastructure status, hospitality wanting, better single window policy. I think these have all
Hmm.
become, jargons now, because, I've been hearing them. I mean, like 2012 was when I entered B2B travel journalism, and it's been 12 years now. I mean, by then, it's
And
just that everyone talks about, like when the BJP came to power, when they had the election
hmm.
manifesto. So they spoke about three T,
Hmm.
and one of them was tourism. One of the T's was tourism, and they spoke at length about it. But if you see during COVID, the tourism industry didn't get anything from the government. Every tourism reliant
Hmm.
economy supported the tourism industry, but in India, we hardly, the tourism stakeholders hardly got any kind of support. You know, so
Hmm.
I mean, I think it's now time to kind of show, for the government to show. I mean, great that it's the same government that's come to power. The NDA has come to power, and we still have Modi as the prime minister, and he essentially talked at length about tourism. And recently also he spoke
Hmm.
a lot about tourism, and he spoke about how tourism needs to be promoted, and he spoke about how, if you whenever the first few years that Modi became the prime minister, and whenever he went abroad, he would also talk about tourism, and he would always tell the expat Indians how they should encourage their friends, foreigners, to come into India, so that and tell them about how rich Indian culture is.
I think that was the policy even last year with the G20 summit. That had been a focal point where they had taken delegates around and showing them places across India, hoping all of them would be the tourism ambassadors for India.
Yeah, but like, look at what happened at the G20 summit. I mean, like, I can give you a small example of my hometown, Darjeeling, because
Yeah.
one of the sessions also happened in Darjeeling, and I know quite a lot
Hmm.
of the tourism industry stakeholders came into Darjeeling. I mean, like, Darjeeling looked like it. I've never seen Darjeeling like that. And they cleaned the place. It was clean, and there
Hmm.
was so much work that was happening, and it was just for
Hmm.
those 4 3 4 days that those delegates were there. After they left, we were back to the same old Darjeeling that we had. So I guess it's not
Right.
just about these are, you don't make certain changes just so that just for that particular moment, because
Hmm.
G20 was great. I mean, like, if you could do more on it, if you could have made that platform to do more on tourism, that would have been great. But it turned out
Hmm.
G20 turned out to be just another quote unquote Modi event.
Yeah, and I think that's always been the case. Even when you looked at the 2010 Commonwealth Games, right? Back then, the same thing happened with Delhi. A beautification for those 15 days, and then after that, it was back to where it
Yeah, but
was.
the structures remained, right? There were structures that remained.
Yeah.
The roads were much better because I was there in Delhi at that time. I mean, there was some kind
Hmm.
of thing that remained there. But the G20 was more like, it was more like a pandal that was set up and then it was dismantled. So I guess
Hmm.
and it's not just like, I'm not saying that it's just the current government that has not done much about tourism has always been a very sideline project of every government. But if you see
Right.
tourism's contribution to the GDP, and if you see how many people are directly and indirectly employed through tourism, I'm sure they would want to do something about it, because this is a revenue generating and an employment generating uh, you know sector, and especially for a country like India, where we are struggling so much with unemployment right
Yeah.
now. Bulbul, it was great to talk about whatever is happening, and thank you very much for this. And I hope that everyone who is listening to us had a great time and got some takeaways from this episode. Thank you. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, please subscribe, rate us 5 stars, or leave a positive review. Your support helps us spread the word about the Skift India Travel Podcast and ensures we can keep bringing you free content every week. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the Skift channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated whenever